my name is Emily Kosman. I am a captain with the Columbia Heights Fire Department, and today I am sitting down with our brand new Assistant Fire Chief, Brad Roddy, and we're going to kind of just go over some interesting facts and some storytelling with him. So, welcome, Brad.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful to have you here with us in the fire department.
Appreciate it very much.
So let's start on with the background of what makes Brad Brad. What's the background you got?
Okay. I have a really unique background. To start off with, I grew up in Columbia Heights. I was born and raised here. Lived in a couple of different addresses throughout the city as I grew up. I went to Immaculate Conception School, kindergarten through 8th grade, which is right across the street from us. And then after that, I attended Columbia Heights High School and graduated from there in 2001. I started working full-time right away out of high school because I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do. And I was delivering auto parts for a car dealership in the Twin Cities. And then while I was doing that, I became interested in the fire department. And I actually joined Columbia Heights Fire Department as a paid-on-call firefighter in October of 2002.
Okay.
And they put me through all the training and everything, and that really kind of brought me into the fire service and exposed me to all that. I really enjoyed it a lot. That being said, my family is from Columbia Heights. Both my mom and my dad, their families are originally from here. And so my parents met and then made a family, and now we grew up here. Yeah, that's kind of how I started and got into the fire service and everything. My dad worked for the city for about 30 years as a police officer, and then he kind of worked his way through the ranks there, and he retired as a captain.
Nice.
And I got exposed to that as well, so I ended up going away to college in Alexandria, Minnesota, and got my law enforcement degree there, and then returned here and worked on the fire department until August of 2008, when I landed my first full-time police officer job, which was down in the city of Mankato. And so I had to move away. So I had to resign my position from the fire department, which I didn't really want to do, but it was kind of part of the process and everything. I went down there and I worked as a police patrol officer for 3.5 years. Not from the area, didn't know it, but I got to learn it. Really good people, fun town. I learned a lot in the job. I was new, I had no experience. So they really kind of took me under their wing and showed me how to be a police officer and do the job and everything. So that being said, when I was down there, I knew I wanted to get back into the fire service on some level because I still had a passion for it. So the city of Woodbury at the time ran a dual function position where you worked as a police officer and a firefighter, or a police officer as a paramedic. So I laterally transferred to the city of Woodbury and worked there as a police officer firefighter for a little over 11 years.
Oh, wow.
So we did dual role, and how that worked is I had a police patrol car that I was in and I would work out of, and then if a fire came out, I had my turnout gear and our air pack in the back of the car with me. I'd drive to the scene and meet the fire department there, and I would change from one uniform into the other, and then I'd operate under the fire department's direction for the length of that incident, and I did that. And I really liked that because it gave me best of both worlds. When we bought our house in Arden Hills and we lived there and I was working in Woodbury, I had joined the Lake Joanna Fire Department because I still wanted to be active in my local fire department where I lived. And I'd done that part-time while also working full-time as a police officer firefighter in Woodbury. And I got pretty involved in the department, and I was able to slowly climb through the ranks. And I worked my way up to lieutenant and then captain part-time. And then the department had started talking about hiring some full-time captain positions. Just for some mid-level supervision, a little more consistency, having someone there regularly to kind of know about what's going on day to day. And I thought, well, that would be a pretty neat opportunity to do that. I still had a pretty, for lack of better explanation, burning passion for the fire service. So I thought that was a pretty neat opportunity. And then they hired those a little over a year ago. So I made the decision to transfer from law enforcement to fire service full-time at that time, and get really kind of immersed in the day-to-day operations of the department there. So it was a really good time, and I learned a lot.
Yeah. So that really ignited even more of the passion of wanting to accelerate your career and really dive deep into the fire service.
Yeah.
And then here comes the little Columbia Heights job posting, and
that
really piqued your interest.
It was not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
I was not at that time. I knew I wanted to elevate to a chief officer level. I didn't know it was going to be at that time, but things happen sometimes for a reason, and I really believe that if you can't, as they say, hit the ball if you don't swing at it.
Exactly.
So I put my name in, and I didn't know where the process was going to go from there, and I just started stepping through it and interviewing, and going through that and getting to meet the people here at the city and everything, and it evolved to the point where I was able to be offered the job, which was incredible. You know, and now to be sitting here, we talked about this off camera a little bit. I'm grateful. You know, it's pretty cool, in my opinion. And now that I've gotten to meet everybody that works here, and they've been all very welcoming, and at the city as well. So I feel like I made a really good decision. I knew I wanted to go to the next level, and what a neat opportunity to come back to the department that invested in me at an early age.
Very early.
Where it all started. That's where my public safety career started, was with the city of Columbia Heights. So to come back and to be able to contribute and bring some of the work experience that I have in both police and fire, I thought would make me a really good candidate for this position. So I went through the process, and I was fortunate enough to be sitting here with you today.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So one of the things that's kind of cool with you is that you have a twin brother. And both of you joined the fire department at the same time. And went through here, and how was it working with a family member in communities, public service? How is that?
It was good. I would say at a younger age, we used to do everything together. When we joined the fire department, we were living with our mom at the time. Our parents are divorced. But my dad was looking for a house, and we actually convinced him to buy a house across the street from the old fire station on Mill Street. So the address was 4025 Washington Avenue, which is just across 40th Avenue there. And that was done very intentional. He and I both wanted.
Did your dad know?
He knew
what you
he
guys
knew
were
he
going
wanted
for?
to do. It allowed us to, when we got called in from home, we could just run across the street then and get at the station and meet up with the full-time firefighters as they were there, and we could make that first truck out the door. So it was really intentional.
How many times did you get to that truck before even the full-time staff was in the truck?
Did that ever happen? Maybe once or twice. I was a lot younger then, so you could wake up a lot quicker
and get going.
In tennis shoes and gym shorts and run across the street and get out the door. My running across the street days are over. Or behind me, if you will say.
You have a vehicle to utilize now to get to these scenes.
So it was cool. And then he and I, we really were invested in it. And to be able to work with each other was really fun because we know each other so well that you almost don't have to talk. I think you could probably relate when you have a partner that you work with a lot or for a long period of time. You handle calls or certain experiences that you can just work through without a lot of verbal exchange between each other because you kind of know what the other person is thinking. That does correlate to having a twin brother. And that carried on into our law enforcement career. He went to Mankato. We went there together. We were hired together. And then when I went to Woodbury, I told him how much I really enjoyed it there and the experience and everything. And he came up about 6 months later. And he's still there.
He's still at Woodbury.
He's still there. He got promoted to police patrol sergeant. So he's running his crew and everything, and he really likes it. And we have one other brother. He's a police officer in Fridley, and he's a sergeant there as well.
So very heavy in the
public safety
family. And and then obviously I wouldn't say that was heavily influenced by your dad.
No, mom and dad were always, mom did not work in public safety, but obviously she was in our lives. Dad was always in public safety as a police officer, but they really encouraged us to do whatever we wanted to do. They didn't really have like a predetermined path. And so I always appreciated that. They said you need to do whatever you find interesting and makes you happy. So
they were good. Sounds like they're good cheerleaders because they got three boys that definitely went to the public service, and they're doing quite well. So now that you're here, you've been here with Columbia Heights for a little bit. What are the things that you are doing as the assistant chief here? What does your daily duties look like, or what are your long projected plans that you would like to see the city and primarily the fire department achieve?
Short term, I've just been trying to learn what everybody does at the fire department, what specifically their areas of expertise are on their shifts and everything. We have an inspections shift, that's you guys, you and Kyle. We have Tom and Mike who handle training. And we have Tony and Grant who are our logistics division. And what that means is they get all the equipment and everything, the supplies that we need for the trucks, the station, everything to do our job effectively. And learning all that, learning the operations day in, day out, what's going on in the culture within the organization is really important to me. So I've kind of been taking time in the last couple months to really kind of see how all that works and get acclimated. I was here on the department a long time ago. That was a long time ago, and things have changed. Faces have changed, but the desire to do a good job and be there for the community when they need it is still very present. long-term goals. The chief and I have spoken a little bit about strategic planning for the long term. What does the fire department look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And how are we going to set it up for success so that long after we go, those who fill our shoes come into a good situation and everything, and how it can be successful. And what does the fire department, what does the service, what does the city want from their fire department? What does that look like, right? That's kind of a high level look at it. I'm glad that the conversation's starting to happen, because I think we have an obligation to prepare for those milestones and set the people up coming in behind us for success.
Yep, because when you were back in Columbia Heights as a paid on call, the forward thinking, future was probably different than it actually did turn out, and definitely is going to be different as we train the younger ranks to come up through and carry the city on into the next 20, 30, 40, indefinitely in time. So yeah, passing on knowledge and keeping our skill set, that's definitely a very big integral part of having an assistant chief to oversee our operations to keep everything flowing. That's a big thing for sure. So kind of going in with that, when we're talking about the progression of the department, what would you say to anybody that is watching this and looking at, is the fire service for me? What is it about? I mean, what can you say to those people that have, an interest to maybe join the fire department, or just checking it out? From everything from the Explorer program all the way up to the chief level. What would you say to people about looking in the fire service?
The first thing I would say is, if you have questions or you're interested in it, come down and stop in, introduce yourself to the staff that's working, and we can answer any questions that they might have. Find out a little bit about the department, and hopefully we can help give you all the information to make the best decision possible. We're always looking for recruitment. We're always looking for people, and we want community members to make up the fire department, and so that we can provide the best service possible to all of our community groups. We have a wide range of demographics here, and we want to provide to all of those. And so I would encourage people to come down and ask questions. We also have events throughout the year that they can come and interact with the firefighters. One of those big ones is Fire Prevention Week in October, when we have an open house. And people can come and they can see what the fire department's all about and speak on a first-person basis. There's that opportunity too, if they don't want to come down on their own. There's that day where the community is invited to come in and kind of see what we do and see the things that we're highlighting for Fire Prevention Week. For younger people, the Explorer program has been a foundation of bringing people on and up through the ranks and in many different career fields. I know several people who they started there in high school and then worked their way up, and whether they landed in the fire service or law enforcement or emergency medical services, whatever, that really gave them a foundation, a platform to kind of build off of and start their careers. The Explorer program is set up, for children who are in the high school age, and it gives them an opportunity to come down to the fire station and train with the equipment and everything and work with the personnel and get exposure to the career service. And I think it's really, really pretty cool. Our fire chief, was heavily involved in the Explorer post for a long, long time, and it's kind of built it up to what it is, and it's been consistent over the years. Even when I was here early in the 2000s, I was an associate advisor with the Explorer program, so I got to see part of it.
Yeah, you worked with Dan, who
I did.
Right now is
our chief.
Is our fire chief. So how awesome is it to see that evolution of seeing Dan, who worked, as a full-time firefighter, then made it as captain, and you were working alongside with him in the Explorer program, fostering these young kids to, hopefully be in the fire service or just in general in any facet of.
It's pretty cool to see him come all the way through that progression, and to see him ascend to where he is now. And I couldn't think of a better person to lead the department, because he has all that background knowledge of it, and he's been a local resident here for a long, long time. He knows the community really well. It's pretty neat though. And then you hear stories of other people who were in the Explorer post and they've gone off and done other things with their careers in different areas and have been really successful. So I see it of a huge value and a great opportunity. But number one, if anybody has any questions, I encourage them just to come down here. Doors open.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely when the station doors are open, we're washing trucks. come
Yep.
down and say hi to us.
Yeah.
We're always open.
Yep.
We never really close. Do
No,
we?
we don't.
No.
Nope. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
Even leap year.
365 days a year, even leap
Even
year.
leap year, we're here.
We still are open, and we will come when called.
Of course.
Yep.
So, what drew you back to Columbia Heights
Okay.
from your Woodbury and Lake Joe, and you kind of doing that. And
Yep.
you had your family, obviously.
Yep.
What made that Columbia Heights application just really draw you into wanting to come back here? Why here? I mean, I know you wanted to come back full circle, but why Columbia Heights?
Okay. The law enforcement career and the fire career that I have, that kind of unique dynamic, I thought my work experience would be very transferable into this role because of the two areas that I would be overseeing, one being the property maintenance piece of it. So there's some code enforcement things there. A lot of what I did as a police officer was code enforcement focused.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be really something that I'd have kind of a leg up on. And I'm pretty good with communicating with people and explaining things to them. And then obviously the fire background, the fire department. I wanted to bring the experiences from the other departments that I've been on to here and hopefully share some ideas and get some ideas from you guys to how we can continue forward in a really good positive manner. For Columbia Heights, I wanted to go to a department that I was going to have some combination full-time, part-time staff, and this place offered that.
Yep.
And then obviously there's a personal connection to it here, that I started here and everything, and I thought it was pretty neat that I could come back and share some of the experiences that I've learned along the way with them and hopefully contribute. So that was kind of what really drew me to it.
Yep. There's a few people here that remember you from back in the day, so there's some shared relationships. But I think it's interesting to hear some of the stories from them, and then hear your side of the story. And sometimes they're a little bit more funnier, I think, coming from you on what really did happen.
I have some good memories, and and I have a lot of respect for the people who gave me the time and energy to show me how to do the job here, and I don't ever forget that. I was young. I was 20 years old when I started here, and I walked in the door completely with an open mind, no experience, and I just walked in and tried to soak up as much as I could from people, and I listened, and I kind of stood in the corner, didn't say much until the senior people spoke to me. But after a while, they saw that I was putting in the effort and energy, and that I cared. And then they would kind of take me under their wing and show me things and teach me along the way. And that's pretty important,
What is something that stuck out to you that you carry to this day, I guess, that someone showed you, a skill or just a good training or just a good memory that stood out to you that you have it concreted in your mind?
Okay. Well, there is one thing that stood out to me, and it's an important task. It's not a super glamorous task. But when you're new on the department and we get called in from home to respond, and we didn't have a lot of training at the time, I still needed to be able to contribute. But one of the tasks that we were tasked with early on was making sure the floors are clean in the station when the trucks are out on the call and getting that done. So mopping and squeegeeing floors and making things look good, and that way we're taking care of our building as well, has always kind of resonated with me, taking pride in that. It's like I said, it's not the most glamorous task in the world, but it needs to be done, and it helps preserve the things that we've been entrusted with, i.e. a nice building for the long term, and our trucks and everything. So that was one thing that kind of always stuck out with me, that I remembered. From a firefighting tactics standpoint, I have a pretty good story.
Yes.
I remember it. I think it was in the spring, and it was a Saturday, and I was working in the station, so I was on duty with the now fire chief Dan O'Brien, who was a captain at the time, and John Aldrich, who is one of our lieutenants on the fire department. And we were doing some truck checks, inventory things out in the station, and we got a call for a structure fire in Columbia Heights. It was about 11 in the morning, I remember, and the sun was shining. It was one of those blue days, it was 50 degrees out. And I was like, oh, boy, here we go. This is it. And we go over, we get dressed on the truck, and we were a little short that day. So Dan had to do several jobs. He had to multitask. He had to drive the truck to the scene, and he had to take command of the scene and get everything set up while John and I, John, who was Explorer at the time, we had to get the hose line stretched out and get ready to go into the house to make the fire attack. And we had gotten up to the front door, and the brown smoke is billowing out, every orifice of the home and everything. So it was very apparent that it was on fire. And we made our way in the front door, and Dana's behind me, and I'm on the nozzle, and we made it about a foot in the door, and you couldn't see. You know what that's like.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a black cloth is dropped in front of you, and you can't see anything, so it's all done by touch. And we did have some thermal imaging camera back then, but it wasn't as user-friendly as it is today, where you can hold it in a hand and just point and look through the smoke and look for the heat or the fire.
Yeah.
So we had to do everything by touch, and we made it about 10 feet in the door, and I couldn't see anything. I couldn't anything. And I said to Dan, I said, I can't see it. And he goes, okay, when you're ready, stop, take a breath, and hold it. And he's like, I want you to listen. And just sit there for a second. Listen for it and see if you can feel the heat. And I'm like, okay. So I did that. Then I sat there, and we're in this dark room, and I could hear the crackling of the fire off to my right in front of me. And I could feel a little bit of warmth.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, it's over. And I said, I think it's to the right, it's over here. And he says, okay, put some water over there. Start spraying some water over. And that's kind of how we worked through the rest of the event, is we fought
Just
it and
fighting the darkness.
fighting the darkness, and trying to crawl through it and get to the seat of the fire and put it out. And that always stuck with me, just the fact that Dan has always been a teacher, and it goes back to his exploring days, which then carried into his full-time career and so on and so forth. And even in that moment when he was tasked with a lot of different things to get accomplished before we could successfully put out the fire, he still had in the back of the mind that he was teaching all the time.
Yep.
And that kind of goes back to your previous question a little bit, what attracted me to here.
Yeah.
I knew he had been promoted to chief, and I knew the type of person that he was, the character, and the mentality that he went in was always teaching others.
Yep.
And growing them, and I knew I wanted to be a part of that. I knew that coming in here, he would challenge me in different ways, get me out of my comfort zone, but also encourage me and teach me.
Yeah.
And that was something that I was looking for.
Yep.
And so knowing that he was going to be the chief for the next several years, that I'd be kind of in that environment with all of you, that was very attractive to me.
Yeah. Because you had good guidance from Dan so early in your fire service career, and now that you're accelerating that, now what a better person to be your mentor is Dan. So
absolutely.
And I 100% agree. Dan was my first partner.
I've only been here now since January 29th, so it's been a little over like 6-7 weeks. And I'm obviously, I have a lot to learn and still am, but he's constantly coming to my office and showing me different things, and we're talking about different things, and he's like, this is how I do this, and this is the why behind it. And that's really important in the explanation from a learning perspective. Well, you can tell somebody, well, we just do this. Well, why do we do it this way? Or how did it get to be that point that we do it this way? That's really important to me, and he's very, very good about that. So I'm excited to continue learning from him.
Good. Right. The city's definitely changed since when you left and to where it's now. So, and Columbia Heights is just a fun diamond in the rough, I think. It's just, we are a very odd, in a good way, anomaly of what is going on here and what the services that we provide, from fire to police and just kind of the community engagement we have all around. So, I mean, this is a fun town to work for. I think I personally think we have the best job in the world, and I think this is an amazing city to work for because of the people that we work with, either here in the fire department with our brothers and sisters over in the police department, in public works, and city admin and everyone over there too. So I do want you to share a story that I absolutely love to hear. And you kind of mentioned it a little bit at your banquet that we had here.
Yeah, my badge pinning, right?
Your badge pinning out of the banquet.
A little while ago.
Tell me about this CD, this fantastic CD that's in now a retired fire truck we have. But tell me about this.
Yeah. So the fire department, you always want to provide a high quality of service, and fire doubles in size, as we know, when it's left unattended and not put out. And so everything we do here in the fire service is really time oriented in our responses and everything. So good, healthy competition between cities to who can get to the fire first is not a bad thing. And at the end of the day, you're just trying to provide that good service and show up, right? There was a day, I can't remember what year it was, but my brother and we got called back to the station for a house fire in Fridley. It was like one of those winter days, like in February, where it's cold, but it's sunny out and there's snow on the ground. And we get there, and our chief, who was the captain at the time, Dan O'Brien, was on shift, along with Tom Matson, and then Tony Kazupi came to the station with us as well. We all got on the big ladder truck, Aerial 1, and we raced north up on University Avenue towards Fridley to go to this house fire. And like some athletes have, you know, or people who are competitive, they wear like earbuds or headphones or whatever and listen to music to kind of get themselves psyched up and ready to go
into
mentally,
that zone to go,
get into that
to go
mental
fight,
doing
yeah.
to go do work, right? And someone on the fire department, I can't remember who, they created like a mixed CD. And for those of you who are too young and don't remember what a mixed CD is, please ask your parents. But it had a greatest hits of kind of like songs or music that would get you pumped up and ready to go to work. And so we're driving Lights and Sirens northbound, and Dan puts the CD in the CD player, and it starts playing in the cab of the truck, and we're all getting excited. We're talking about what we're going to do, and yada, yada, yada. And we get close to the Fridley Fire Station on University Avenue, the old one.
Yep.
And there's one of the songs that comes on, and it's a song that sounds like this. Da-da-da, 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 dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Hi-oh, silver away. And Dan takes the microphone from inside the truck, and he holds it up to the speaker inside the truck that now broadcasts that song outside the PA system of the truck. As we're driving Lights and Sirens up University Avenue, and we happen to cross right in front of Fridley Station with that blaring music, at the same time as that they're coming out, and their firefighters are looking at us as they're running into the station and pulling the other guys are pulling the truck out, and they're in shock and disbelief as to what they're seeing. And it's the reason we're doing it is because we're going to beat them to their own fire in their own city, because we were fortunate enough to have a quick response. And I can't do it justice to describe what the look on their faces were when we came blazing by to go to the scene. And it's just really funny, though.
That is awesome.
It gets better. Fast forward to now, to my badge pinning. I shared that story with all of you. And somebody walks over to the aerial ladder truck that we still have, that's sitting behind me over here.
Yep.
And that CD is still in the CD player, and they pulled it out and gave it to me.
Yep. So even more of a full circle of Chief Roddy's history here at the fire department, the notorious CD going into battle on getting to Fridley's fire. I would assume we were there first and we put it out for him.
I think we were, if I remember correctly, but a good competitive spirit is not a bad thing.
Oh, gosh,
and we have wonderful working relationships with our neighboring communities, Fridley and St. Anthony. We run a lot of calls together with. Now other ones too. We'll go anywhere and we will ask for help when we need it too. And I think that's just a pretty neat respect that is amongst all the departments in the area. You know, that you have. We have working relationships with everybody, but a good competitive spirit is not a bad thing.
Yep. It's a partnership that is, in my eyes, priceless.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is a priceless partnership that we have with the neighboring towns, because we couldn't do what we do in the manner that we do without them.
Yeah.
You can't put a fire out with just two firefighters. You need multiple hands on deck for these.
Yep.
So, hey, well, thank you. That is probably one of my favorite stories so far.
It's pretty neat that the CD still exists and that it was still in the CD player in the truck.
Yeah, what are we doing with the CD?
I don't know. You guys can enshrine it or something, put it in a glass case or something.
I think we should make it a gold album for you, for sure.
It's sitting in my locker in my office right now. You're certainly welcome to it.
I can say that I know I've put that CD in the aerial when we've been going to calls, and it may have skipped a few times, but it definitely
It's probably got some scratches in it now.
It's got a few.
Maybe we could transfer it to like some online streamed version of it or whatever.
Maybe we could put it on our trucks now.
There you go.
But do it gently around Fridley.